Good afternoon. My name is Jeanette Lawrence Bishop. Today we're here to discuss the holistic impact of the human-nature relationship regarding the benefits of simulated exposure in lieu of organic exposure. There is no denying that there is a deep, ever-present connection between humans and nature. Since the beginning of time, humans have been reliant for their existence upon nature for meeting all its needs. But more than the physical needs of humans, overlooked is our physical development, our cognitive abilities, and a deep psychological well-being that we get from being in this relationship we have with nature. Humans' ongoing need and reliance for industrialization has weakened our connection with nature, and even more so over the last century, it has become a weaker connection because of our newfound love of digital media. The more we become separated from nature, the more our physical, cognitive, and mental well-being will suffer. In this presentation, we are going to look at how over the last century, digital media has separated us from nature. We're going to look how nature benefits humans on a whole. And then we're going to take a little bit of a deeper dive into those who do not have the ability to have organic experiences either through illness, design, or restriction to be in nature. And we're going to see how the digital technology that first caused our separation is offering up a new life to those who are unable to have these organic experiences. Thank you. I hope you enjoy. In 1939, the New York Times predicted that television would fail because the average American family would not have enough time to watch it. Then, in 1946, the 20th Century Fox television movie producer, Darryl Zanuck, said that television wouldn't last because people would soon get tired of staring at a plywood box every night. By the mid-1950s, half the homes in America had at least one black and white television. By the mid-70s, that number was up to 90% of the homes in America. In 1948, to keep Americans entertained, cable television was introduced. 53 million American homes by 1989 had cable television, and by 1992, 60% of American homes had a subscription as well. The increasing viewership led to higher demands for clearer broadcasting, wider selection of programming to help keep the American public entertained. Video games were first developed in the late 1950s, with consumer hardware available in the late 1970s. However, it wasn't until the late 1980s that consumer hardware equipment became readily available for the general American public. In 1995, the Sega Corporation first introduced the 3D virtual gaming system called Saturn. Sony and Nintendo soon followed shortly thereafter with their own systems. By 2000, 80% of the American homes had at least one video gaming system in their home, forever changing the way that America's youth interacted and spent time with each other, shifting play from outdoors to in. In 1977, the first mass-produced personal computer became available. However, it wasn't until the early 1990s that personal computers were so popular that there was one in almost every household. In 1991, the first servers for what became later known as the World Wide Web were launched. By 1993, the World Wide Web was finally a fully functioning, integrated system of servers allowing data to be transmitted quickly all over the world. Companies like America Online quickly helped grow the expansion of the World Wide Web, making it easier to communicate, learn, game, and entertain from anywhere all over the world. By the early 2000s, between television, video games, and computers, humans were spending a scarce amount of time playing outdoors, exploring, and just being. Then, in the early 2010s, the smartphone was introduced, essentially putting a small computer in the hands of almost every American and changing not only the amount of time that we spend in nature, but changing the way that we communicate with each other. In the great words of Sebastian the Crab from Disney's movie The Little Mermaid, Ariel, the human world, it's a mess. The modern developed world is very stressful, competitive, and fast-paced. There is very little time for refuge, especially from the influx of digital stimulation. We're constantly under the pressure to perform at unforgiving levels of excellence at work, at school, socially. We find ourselves busier and busier every year we move on. The increase of demands on living on us is difficult for us to find time to generate peace and to bring joy into our existence. In fact, many of us get scoffed at for the idea of doing something as simple as self-care. Spending time in nature on a regular basis is not something that comes easily. However, regardless of age or current health concerns, it has been observed that time in nature can reduce muscle tension and blood pressure while decreasing the heart rate and boosting the immune system. Humans are genetically predisposed to having a positive response to nature. This predisposition is so strong that just seeing a simple photograph of a natural setting will elicit a positive response on both the brain and the body. Human exposure to natural elements, such as being able to touch a rock or a tree, be in a body of water, grow plants, sit in the sun, interact with wildlife, it all impacts serotonin and dopamine synthesis within the body. This synthesis creates the sense of calm and the feeling of happiness. Having a sense of place, forming an attachment to the environment in which you're in. Poignant connections for us to experience in particular locations like our home city, our favorite vacation spot, or the rainforest. How many of us have sent money to save the rainforest because we were compelled by having a sense of place to the earth? A sense of place is the uniqueness of experience in an environment. A sense of place often refers to a positive feeling such as comfort or safety that we feel within a particular environment. When humans spend more time in nature, they develop this sense of place, and in turn, having this sense of place makes one feel more secure and more safe and more confident in one's skin and in one's environment. When we have a sense of place in the world, we are more connected with the world and we are more connected with each other. By having this connection, we are more likely to want to preserve the environment we live in. It is important and critical to have a relationship with nature. This relationship is great for cognitive development. When we have a chance to interact with nature, it encourages problem solving, it encourages creativity. It is fundamental for executive functioning and development. There is an increased amount of concentration and cognitive skills, especially in children when we spend time in nature. For kids, open-ended, spontaneous play gives them the opportunity to explore, classify, observe, interpret, and manipulate the environment around them, enhancing their creativity, their cognitive abilities, and their executive functioning. Nature is a readily available, low-cost resource to preventing chronic illness. Even before birth, exposure to nature encourages better fetal growth, healthier birth rates, and this goes for all mothers across all socioeconomic levels. Any time spent outdoors in the sunlight will decrease nearsightedness and increase vitamin D levels within the body. Increased access to parks and green spaces increases and encourages physical activity. Increased physical activity will lower obesity rates and will increase the probability that children will remain active into adolescence. Other physical health benefits to being in nature regularly, like I mentioned, is in boosting the immune system, reducing stress levels, lowering blood pressure, improving mood, increasing energy levels, accelerating recovery from injury, illness, or surgery, all while improving sleep. When children are allowed to play freely in nature, they can explore, climb, jump, run, dig, swim, swing, so many different activities that develop gross and fine motor skills. Being able to get outdoors not only helps the children, but it helps adults maintain their physical well-being too, whether it is through being able to walk and hike, which would help with balance, improve exercise, communications, and networking. Being in nature is a fully immersive sensory experience. It opens all your senses and draws you in without you being overstimulated. Being in nature has a holistic impact on everyone. Since the early 1900s, there has been a steady cultural shift from unadulterated outdoor living and open play that began in childhood to a more structured, indoor, and technology-laden lifestyle that we are more accustomed to nowadays. This shift has created what some researchers would call a nature deficit. This phenomenon leads to the decline in creativity, cognitive processes, executive functioning, as well as increased physical and mental illness, and a loss of respect for nature on a whole. Nature serves as the canvas for a child's imagination. It is a place where they can express their perceptions of the world around them. There is nothing that matches the benefit of physically being out in nature and experiencing it firsthand. There are no such thing as indoor voices. There is nobody telling you you can't climb on something, you can't jump off something. Well, parents still do that because they're afraid their child might get hurt. But when children are allowed to play freely by themselves, it opens up for a world of possibilities. However, is it possible to bring the benefits of nature to those who can't experience them? Can the technology that has drawn us so slowly away from nature and separated us be the answer to helping those who cannot firsthand experience nature, giving them the opportunity to realize some of the benefits that firsthand organic experience offers? Can it be a way to help reconnect people with nature to help reduce physical and mental illness while bringing about change for executive functioning and cognitive ability? The nature deficit disorder is a term that was coined by Richard Louv. It is the notion that human beings, especially children, are devoting a reduced amount of time to being outdoors than past generations did. This reduction in time spent outdoors has led to a variety of behavioral problems. At this time, the nature deficit disorder is not recognized by the ICD-10 or the DSM-5 or any other mental or medical manual, and has been criticized by Elizabeth Dickinson as a term that creates a misdiagnosis because she believes it shrouds something that should be known as a dysfunctional cultural practice and not some medical diagnosis. Loeb believes reasons for the nature deficit disorder includes things such as parental fears that have been heightened by the media over the years, increased use of technology, and busy and more structured lifestyles. Also, a restricted access to natural areas in a lot of communities. However, the health and well-being of children are not the only thing impacted by a reduction in time spent outdoors. This is something that impacts all of us. It can be seen readily in individuals whose access to the natural experiences are impacted by illness, injury, the process of death, and environmental restrictions. The purpose of this project is to do phenomenological research. It was for me to explore the impact that simulated natural experiences would have on individuals who have restricted access to hands-on natural experiences. I wanted to discover if the holistic benefits that people experience being in nature could also be experienced through simulated experiences brought to you by the technology that has so readily pulled us away. This project is intended to inform the general population, but really it is to bring relief to those such as children or adults that are sick and hospitalized, those that are incarcerated, older people that are in nursing homes and hospice, or those that are at home and cannot get out, or even inner city areas where it's not safe or there aren't any green spaces to get out to. Hopefully this project will answer some of those questions. On January 5th, 2022, I had the pleasure of visiting the Wormslow Historical Site in Savannah, Georgia. First settled in 1733 and home to the oldest standing structure in Chatham County. I had just driven my son back to college after winter break and was cramming in a few days of vacation before I had to fly home. I had a few hours while my son was in class and had been meaning to visit the Wormslow site since 2018 when my son was a freshman, but things had always been so busy that I never made it. I drove down between the living oaks and parked in the parking lot, took my map and went into the small museum. After I went through the museum, I decided to walk the grounds of Wormslow. The previous video consisted of some of the photos I took while I was there. I visited the old fort ruins, the gravesite of James Oglethorpe, The original stone house made of tabby, which is a concrete-like material consisting of shells, the blacksmith's workshop and acres of salted marshes, live oaks, Spanish moss, local wildlife, magnolia trees, and the long-needled pines. There were long winding trails throughout the property that guests were allowed to walk at their own leisure. I wandered through the wooded acreage for over 2 hours. I was in complete awe of the beauty, the natural silence, the wildlife, and as I walked, I started to wonder what it must have been like to grow up on such beautiful lands. What it was like to run wild and free through the woods, climbing trees, jumping into the shallows of the intercoastal waters, chasing the birds, the deer, and the fox, picking up lizards, using fallen sticks as swords or muskets, having the ability to let your mind just create a world so special and so your own that you could be anyone or anything you wanted. Then I thought about how today's youth are all too often cut off from those experiences, how they engage more in structured play or video games, and they are trapped inside. No imagination ever needed because the video game creates the world for you. No getting dirty, no catching frogs, no exposure to the elements, no jumping, no running, no climbing. They never leave their gaming chairs. They never get up. My heart was saddened when I thought of this. I have 4 kids of my own, and I thought, what would their life have been like right now if I hadn't made them go outside and play? If I hadn't trusted that they would come home and I didn't allow them to explore the neighborhood and the parks, if I hadn't signed them up for scouting and all the sports that I had, how different would their lives have been? As a parent, I was lucky. Smartphones and tablets didn't come into fancy until my kids were all over the age of 12. Their childhood had been full of dirt, bugs, cuts, bruises, scrapes, all brought to you by the great outdoors. Over the last several years, I have personally witnessed the impact that restricted access to nature has had on my daughter. She is now currently 18, and at the age of 14, she was a vibrant, full-of-life, multi-sport athlete who loved being outdoors. Everything from camping to fishing to playing sports to hiking to just playing on the playground. But by the time she was 15, she was dealing with several chronic pain disorders and several other serious medical conditions, all of which have still been undiagnosed. These medical conditions all but rendered her bedridden for several years. When I asked her what she had missed the most about being a healthy, vibrant teen, she would say to me, being able to go outdoors, being able to spend time with my friends, being able to enjoy myself. Another time that I was able to see the importance of nature on our well-being was in the winter of 2020. My father, who at the time was 75, had been hospitalized off and on for 4 months with various medical concerns. At one point, he was in the hospital for delirium, and during the visits, while he was suffering from his delirium, he got quite upset, claiming he wanted to go outside and he was being held prisoner because all he wanted to do was watch the geese and the deer play. Even in an altered state of mind, almost tearfully, this man requested an audience with the great outdoors. Also, all the stories that he would recount while we were sitting in the hospital listening and talking were all nature-based, from him swimming as a child to him being on his grandparents' farm, to fishing, boating, hiking, hunting, you name it. What he was discussing first and foremost was his relationship with nature and how much it meant to him. I found this to be fascinating since my father has been disabled since 2001. He has a very hard time getting outside, but in his state of delirium, that is all he longed for. So as you can see, humans have an innate need to relate to nature. For this project, I also had a chance to interview the staff and residents of 2 local nursing homes. I spoke with the facility directors and the intake coordinators, the food service managers, and 2 nurses from each staff. I also spoke with the residents of each facility, where there were a total between the 2 facilities of 164 residents, where 97 were women and 67 were men. The facility directors and intake coordinators were both asked the same question, and both stated when they were asked, what is the most important amenity that people look for when they are asking questions about a nursing home? They explained the ability to go outside or a view of nature from the room being the most highly requested after standards of care and medical services. The food service directors both explained to me, after being questioned, about residents that could eat in the dining hall. Did they sit at an interior table or an exterior table by the window? They said that most of the residents would gravitate towards a window seat. The nurses explained that the residents were allowed to go outside. The ones that were allowed to go outside would make sure that they went out on a daily basis to the gardens and green spaces. They also stated that residents wanted their blinds open as soon as possible in the morning, and that many of the residents would prefer programming like the Discovery Channel and Animal Planet over anything else. When I had a chance to question the residents, it was one question, and it was, aside from independence, family, and a better food selection, what is something you miss more than anything being here? Out of the 164 residents that I asked, 124 of them said something regarding the ability to be out in nature or have a pet. Many elaborated on how they felt more alive and connected being in or being able to be part of nature, even if it was on television. They also commented on having a pet, giving them a sense of purpose and a deeper connection. That connection to nature, again, is so innate. I took the time as well to email my daughter's specialists at the local children's hospital. Out of the 31 doctors that were interviewed, about how their chronically ill patients would respond to the question about what do you miss most about being hospitalized. A resounding answer came back. Children, even above and before asking for a cure for whatever was going on with them, would state that they would rather have the opportunity to go outside. Nature and our connectedness to nature is crucial for our well-being. To escape the strains of daily living, going outside for a walk in the woods, swimming in the ocean, or just sitting and observing the plants and animals in nature allows for us to have a moment's reprieve from our busy lifestyle. The biophilia hypothesis is a term that was once used by Erich Fromm and later was coined in 1984 by the social biologist Edward O. Wilson as an emotional affiliation that humans have with nature, including all living organisms. Being in nature creates a sense of restorativeness for us humans that is unmatched by any other activity. Therefore, it is only natural for humans to have a strong desire to be in and interact with nature for our own well-being. It has been shown that individuals that have had experiences in natural environments express higher levels of positive mood than those who experience urban settings. However, first-hand exposure to nature is not the only way to receive these positive benefits. It has been observed that even though humans have the greatest holistic benefit from first-hand immersive natural experiences, that it is possible to simulate an equivalent experience through either film, video games, virtual reality, or on the computer. It has been shown that a simulated natural experience caused higher levels of positive influence and a better feeling of restorativeness when compared to an urban simulated experience or no experience at all. What is surprising is that the type of benefits we receive through simulated experiences were very dependent on the type of images shown. There was a higher positive effect experienced through simulations where scenes of full, lush wilderness with no human interaction was shown. There was a noted reduction in negative mood when urban green spaces were shown, but the positive effect was not as great as the wilderness images. The more immersive the virtual simulation is, the more positive the psychological effects were. Therefore, simulations where the participant would walk or perhaps bike ride through a natural setting provided the greatest benefit by comparison to just observing still photographs on the computer. So the next time you jump on your Peloton, instead of letting the drill instructor of a trainer rip your head off, why don't you switch over to doing a trail ride through the mountains for a more holistic impact on your well-being and training? It has been observed that any exposure to nature using technology increases the positive effect greatly over no exposure at all. This kind of holistic impact can be used to help improve the quality of life for those who have limited firsthand natural experiences due to medical, physical, environmental limitations and restrictions. We have a very deep and meaningful relationship with nature. It is vital to the holistic well-being and development of the total person. Nature impacts us emotionally, spiritually, physically, mentally, and cognitively. The absence of natural experiences in human existence would be detrimentally holistic. Over the last century, the human-nature relationship has been deeply impacted by our busier, more scheduled lifestyles and the introduction of digital media. Television, cable, video games, computers, and smartphones have helped to drive a wedge between us and our natural experiences. This division from nature has created greater mental and physical health concerns for us humans, especially those with limited access to organic natural experiences, either through illness or environmental restrictions, like incarceration or urban city living. However, the same technology that has helped to separate us from nature is now showing benefits when it comes to simulated natural experiences. Individuals who have had the ability to either watch a nature program on television or use virtual reality hardware or a video game that simulates a natural environment were found to have experienced many of the same benefits that individuals were able to have when they were organically having natural experiences. The human-nature relationship is vital to the overall holistic well-being of us humans as individuals, and even more so through organic firsthand, full sensory natural experiences, with them being best for our health. Some benefits are better than none, and experiencing nature through simulation still offers benefits to the holistic well-being of humans that cannot be denied. Thank you.